Thanks for tuning in to Bitches Be Cray. Just a quick reminder, everything we share on this show reflects our personal experiences and what's worked for us. We're not healthcare professionals, so if you or someone you know is dealing with a medical or mental health concern, please reach out to a qualified professional for support. What's up, bitches? Welcome to Bitches Be Cray. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Nancy. And today we're going to be ending our series of the 5 wounds that prevent you from being who you really are, your true self. But this last episode is about how it goes. We're not going to go into real depth because there's a separate book for it, but it kind of gives you some kind of examples on how to heal it and how to also know if you've actually started healing it.
Yeah, so it's basically going to talk to you just kind of what healing means, according to this author, what healing means, and basically, the steps you'll take to do it. So the first thing you have to do is become aware of your wounds and aware of the mask that you're wearing. And you have to be able to accept it, which can be really hard because I feel like a lot of times we're in denial and we're like the victim and we blame others for like everything. We don't want to accept the things, or we can't even see sometimes to accept the things that we are doing. But if you want to heal, you have to be like, yep, I'm wearing this mask, or yep, I'm doing that. And that's part of, whichever wound it may be at the time. But the masks that we wear, like we have created these masks so that we can protect ourselves. And that's what's helped you survive, till now. And it helped you like adapt when you were like growing up in your family environment, when you started like realizing what rules and boundaries that you had with your family and your like initial relationships. These masks, even though they are, they're also hindering you, but they protected you as well. And when you start trying to heal this, you might start feeling a resentment towards your parents. And then at some point, that resentment might transfer like onto other people. Nancy and I were just talking about this earlier today. I feel like I had like some resentment towards my mom over the last few years because of the rejection wound I had.
Mm-hmm.
And then like some things changed in my personal family environment where we were seeing our children on a different schedule, and like they're older now and they're like involved in sports and they're having like relationships. And so I was actually also starting, so like the point of this is I'm saying like you can transfer that resentment
If
to
you
other.
have issues with your mom, you have issues with women.
Yeah, because like now like my stepdaughter wasn't coming around a lot and it was really hurting my feelings, and I realized just because like that feeling of being rejected from my mom,
Mm-hmm.
I'm now feeling it with her.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that could happen. And I think, Nancy, you've mentioned before like your issues with women.
Yeah, I'm not really like, I don't have like a lot of female friends. Like friends that I have that are not in my family, you, my friend that lives in Texas, and my other best friend. That's it.
Yeah. Well, that's because, well, I guess because your wound, but I know like you were being saying like when you were like a teenager, right, that you felt like rejected by
A lot.
women who were like you,
Mm-hmm.
like from your culture, from
Yeah,
your,
a lot. Mexican women rejected me a lot. I think it's very rare the ones that didn't. Even as an adult, I find it very hard to make friendships with women.
Yeah, but you're starting to,
I'm
because
trying.
I think it's because you've been healing this wound with your mom. Because I think you used to say to me, I wish I had like a friend who also had, was like in a similar stage of life as you, like a mom friend.
Yeah, and I made one.
Yeah, and now you've made one. So
and I really like that.
that's awesome. I'm very happy for you. But back to the resentment. So, like I said, you might start resenting your parents, or you might have already been resenting your parents and not understanding why. And then you notice if you're having those issues, whether it's someone with the opposite sex or the same sex, depending on the wound. But basically, we end up resenting our parents because we have the wounds that they have. And so basically we see them modeling those wounds. And think about like what people always say. Like a lot of people are like, they don't want to be like their parents, right? Like if someone says, "Oh, you're just like your mom," or "Oh, you're just like your dad," or this or that, and a lot of times people like that offends them almost.
Yeah.
And I think Nancy, you were talking about like it feels like sometimes those things come from our parents, but the opposite parent,
Yeah.
right? Like they're like, "Oh, you have that quality just like your dad. It makes me crazy." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
It kind of makes you feel like shit.
Yeah. So then sometimes you know, that'll hurt you too. But wounds can only be healed through forgiveness with ourselves and forgiveness with our parents because like we've mentioned, the wounds come from your parents, but then you start maybe mimicking the behaviors of your parents and the wounds that they have. So you have to forgive yourself and them. And basically, the transference I mentioned before, like how I mentioned, like maybe it was like from my mom, the rejection, and now it's something I've been feeling with my stepdaughter. Actually, recently been feeling this with a friend, a female friend
Mm.
that kind of I felt rejected by. I don't think she meant to reject me, but that's my wound.
Yeah.
Like something she did or didn't do made me feel rejected. But when we put that transference on others, like it can make us blame ourselves. And then when you blame yourself for something, you feel guilty. And then when you feel guilty, she says it's harder to heal. So you have to keep that in mind. She also says that this is a quote from the book: there's no bad people in this world. There are only those who suffer. And basically, what she means by that is like your parents or maybe even somebody you know that's not your parent that just have triggered your wound. They might have done something, then you're just like, what the heck is wrong with you? That behavior is like unacceptable and this and that. But they're also suffering, and maybe they don't even know
Oh,
it.
I have the perfect story for this.
Okay.
When we went to Colorado with my niece, we went to this town called Cripple Creek in Colorado. It was very cute. And we went inside this like boutique. Inside the boutique, they had a tea, like a tea place where you can have tea, and it was really cute and everything. So we ordered the coffee and we got the girl some like dessert or whatever. We went back to it. It was so cute. We were in there, blah blah blah. The owner comes out and she's like, the tea sitting area is only for grown-ups. I have this other really like nice area for the kids. Just better. It's more room. She takes us there and it's just a table,
Oh.
a round table. And my niece is like, I'm kind of upset. And I was like, I'm kind of upset too. I was like, I'm a little upset. So we're just sitting like literally over here on the sidelines on this like shitty ass back table. She comes out and she gives us our drinks. She was like, "Isn't this better? You have more space and stuff." I was like, "Actually, it's not better. It's kind of ugly, and yeah, we probably won't come back here." And but then I felt like a bitch, and my daughter was like, "Mom, that was really mean." And I was like, "You're right. That was mean. I should have said it differently." I was like, "But it's not fair
Injustice.
and justice that this is happening." Then we're about to go pay, and she comes out and she's like, "You don't have to pay me anything." And then I was like, "No, we're gonna pay you." And then she just busted out crying, and she was like, "My sister died last week. We were very close." So it made me cry. She's like, and I just feel like I'm lashing out on people.
Oh.
She's like, I'm not okay. I should have let you sit there. Your girls weren't even doing anything bad in the past. The kids are bad, but yours were being chill. They were just sitting there. She's like, I'm so sorry. Next I come back, and she gave us a free drinks, and then she gave the girls like some like little knickknacks from the store, and she was just
Wow.
like bawling. And when you're right, there's no mean people. You never know what people are really going through. And it
Right.
made me so sad for her. Like she was an older lady too. She was probably like in her late 60s.
Oh wow.
It was so sad.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah.
just like, we really never know.
We don't. That's so true. I mean, and that's like I guess what she's
We always think
saying.
it's about us.
Right. Like
She's
she's
just
like
being a bitch.
right. And the author of the book, that's what she's saying, right? Like you have to have that compassion. If you want to heal, you've got to have compassion for people, like not excusing their behavior, but like learning to have compassion for them, like even if we don't agree with what they've done, because like you said, you never know if someone is suffering. So when she talks more about awareness, and here's another quote from the book, she says, when we can manage to say, I reacted like that because I put on such and such mask, then that's how we know that we're in the healing process, like that we're advancing through healing process. And I mean, I don't know if you thought about it in the time, but like you literally just used the word like that wasn't fair, like that injustice
Mm-hmm.
wasn't right. So like that could have been a moment for you
Mm-hmm.
to
It
be
was. That's how I felt.
okay.
I even thought about it. I'm gonna talk about it in the podcast.
Oh well, there you go. And look at that. So yeah, you're making ways towards healing then. She also mentions that you have to be careful when you're trying to heal because your ego will trick you. And if you've heard us talk about stuff around your like inner child before, like there's also like a your inner teen, or you might would refer to that as your like adolescent. And that's where the ego always comes into play, because that like part of you always wants to protect you. It's always trying to solve like what's going on, and how to keep you safe. So like during this healing process, your ego might trick you and make you think like if you get rid of this mask, like you're not going to be protected anymore. But you just have to remind yourself like you're the adult now,
Mm-hmm.
and you are going to figure out how to healing it through it. And she mentions like healing your inner wounds is really similar to healing a physical wound. So think about if you get a cut and like right, you're wounded physically, you're injured, and eventually it can scab over. And if you leave it alone and let it heal, like it'll heal quickly and you'll be better. But if you like mess with that scab and pick at that scab, it's going to take longer to heal. So she says you have to accept your wounds, love it unconditionally, and stop trying to make it go away. Because like right, if you peel off your scab, then the scab's
Mm-hmm.
gone, but the wound is still there. You just picked at it. So when you become aware of your masks, you also have to remember that there's a usefulness in them. And like even in the wound, like we talked through some of these wounds about these traits. Like obviously a lot of these traits are things that can make your life more difficult, but each wound also has some traits that can help your life. Like the ones about like maybe being a planner, maybe being a hard worker, like wanting to have a tidy space. Like those are healthy things. Like obviously they can go too far. Wanting to like if you have the
Yeah.
humiliation wound, wanting to help others, like those are good things. They can bring out good traits in you. So you have to kind of look at those wounds and the masks and be like, okay, how are these useful? Because then it can just help you see it in a different light and maybe not be so like angry that you're going through it. She also says that we have to accept that what we fear, and what we fear is like what others are doing to us. But if we have this wound, the wounds that we're like trying to heal from, then there's a good chance that we're hurting ourselves in the same way, and probably hurting others in the same way as well. So your healing process is complete when you're able to reverse the stages of creating a mask. And in the very first episode, we talked about what it meant to create a mask, but that's been a minute. So I'm going to go through the steps of how you get a mask to begin with. And then we'll talk about how you got to reverse it so that you can heal. Basically, the moment you are born, you are your true self. You're who you are. You haven't had to do anything to like start protecting yourself. You're just born. You're good. And basically, at some point, and we've mentioned throughout each episode, like the age you might be when you're experiencing those wounds, but something happens with one or both of your parents that makes you experience pain. Like maybe you got scolded for something, or maybe you got a sibling and you felt like something wasn't fair. Like something happened, you have an experience, and you discover like you can't actually be yourself. And when you discover that, you start like revolting because you're in pain. And finally, what happens from that is you just resign to the pain and you create a mask so that you can not disappoint others and so that you can protect yourself. So it's almost like you're being a little bit fake because that's what keeps you safe. And that's what, like, everybody wants to please when they're little and
Yeah.
when they're older too, but people like want to please their parents. You want your parents to be proud of you. You want your parents to love you, all of that. So that's what these masks are doing. So when you're ready to heal, you basically go in the reverse order and then you become yourself again. So the last step was you have the mask. So the first step
What if
is,
you can't even remember who you are?
well, I guess you might not until you get way, way deep down in there, and I guess you find your true self. Because isn't that in the title? To find your true
I know.
self?
I just feel like sometimes I don't even know who I am.
Well, maybe it's because you're wearing a lot of masks.
I do, because do I even like me?
Well, that's a good question. I actually think a lot of people don't want to heal because They're not sure they'll like who they are. So, the first thing you're going to do if you want to heal this is become aware of the mask that you are wearing based on situations, based on what happens in your day. Maybe you're wearing the same mask every day. Maybe you're wearing multiple masks, but there's probably going to be one that you wear the most. So, now that you have learned what those characteristics are, you've got to become aware of it. After that, you're probably going to feel some resistance and you're going to want to accuse other people for your suffering instead of thinking it's because of things that you are doing or saying. And that's normal. The third step is you have to give yourself the right to have suffered. Like you have to accept that you have hurt and you have suffered. And you will probably have resented one or both of your parents, depending on the wound, or if you're doing like multiple wounds at that time. And then you have to let it go and feel compassion for your parents, compassion for yourself. And then through those, you'll become yourself again and stop believing that you need masks. And instead, you can accept that, like, all the pain and all these things that you've been through and all the healing, those are just life experiences. Because sometimes life experiences are good, and obviously those are better. But life obviously has painful experiences too, and it's all experiences. And then you get to start loving yourself. It says once you do that, once you go through those stages, that you can start to see transformation. Could be physically, like if you have an illness, maybe you'll get better. Could be mentally for yourself. Maybe you'll start doing more self care and taking care of you, and you'll find happiness like that. You might be like having changes in your relationships in a positive way. Maybe you'll be able to communicate and say things that you need. But she mentions that you have to understand what it means to love yourself, and that loving yourself isn't about what we do or what we have, but rather it's about the acceptance and accepting like who we are in the moment. And she says even though that might mean that we have to accept that we have hurt other people unintentionally because we've been trying to protect ourselves so much through our lives
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes we hurt other people. We don't mean to. Sometimes obviously people do something to hurt people on purpose. But a lot of times we're just trying to protect ourselves, and that causes us to hurt other people in the same way we've been hurt. So she does recommend an exercise for this stage so you can kind of try out these healing techniques. She says at the end of the day, you can write down everything that happened. So basically, like, do some journaling or reflection. After you've done that, you're going to look back through your stuff and you're going to identify the mask that you wore. And then you need to like comment on how you felt about that. And after you've done that, you have to forgive yourself. Give yourself that right to have worn the mask. Like you were doing it to protect yourself. You weren't doing it to like hurt people. And you have to forgive yourself. And she again brings up after you do that the important part to remember about trying not to hold on to guilt, because if you keep feeling guilty about it, you're going to keep wearing the mask and it's going to be difficult to heal. Because another quote she has is without acceptance there can be no transformation. So that's basically what she means by feeling guilty. Like you have to stop feeling guilty for some things and instead be like, okay, I did this because I have this wound, I'm accepting it, and then you can start changing and not doing stuff like that. Because she says you have to remember that we're human and humans have reactions. Like not everything's happy, not everything's joyful, not everything is good. Sometimes things are painful, sometimes things are you're angry, sometimes, you know, you're
Mm-hmm.
jealous, like whatever. Those are all
Yeah.
human reactions. She says, surprisingly, the more that you allow yourself to wear the masks and like do whatever you're doing, that you're probably going to do it less. And that just made me think of like, sometimes you want something so bad, whether it's like a food or you can't wait to go on a trip or like whatever, or something that you'd probably do more frequently. Like it kind of loses appeal
Yeah.
after a while. Like, right, like maybe you found this new food and you love it so much and so you eat it like once a week and eventually you're like, okay, I'm over it. It's kind of like that, right? Like if you like accept that, okay, I'm wearing this mask, whatever, eventually, like now that you know it's okay, maybe you don't even want it anymore and so you can let it go. She also mentions at the end of that chapter that if you want to, you can have a conversation if your parents are alive and you're at a place with them where you can talk to them about it. Not necessarily saying like, I'm blaming you, you did all this to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to be, at a more healed part of you to have this conversation, I would say. But basically, you can just explain your experience and how you felt about things. And she even mentions maybe if you were like for example, if you're a woman and you're talking to your mom and you felt rejected by your mom, that maybe you could even bring that up and say, like maybe some experiences you've had and how it made you feel. And she said you could even ask your mom, like, hey, like maybe when I was a teenager, maybe when I was a young adult, or maybe as a kid, but probably more so as a teenager, like, did you feel rejected by me too? And she said it's possible your parent will feel comfortable, like, again, depends on your relationship with them, and that maybe they'll even tell you about their experience with their parents, and then you can, help them. You're helping them heal without even really meaning to, which is obviously great if you can help somebody else. But I know not everyone has that. So I think another something she didn't say in the book, but like if you really want to heal and have that conversation, if your parents passed away or maybe you just don't feel comfortable and your parent is alive, just write them. You can write them a letter, or like Nancy's mentioned before, because I said, my dad's passed away. I can't really talk to him about anything. And she's like, well, you can have like a spot in your
Mm-hmm.
yard or a spot in your house where you just
A
kind of go there.
garden.
Yeah, where you just kind of go and that's your spot and you have that conversation. So whatever you need to do, you can forgive your parent without actually having to talk to them. But if you feel like you can talk to them and you want to, then there's that option as well. So, for the end here, I do want to share some examples that she gave in the book of what healing looks like for each wound. It's just a short little blurb of like kind of here's a way you'll know if you're healing based on which wound you have. So, we'll start with the rejection wound. She says your wound of rejection is being healed when you start like taking your place more and being more assertive in your life. So like you can say, like, let's say you and your partner are going for dinner, and maybe you don't typically say where you want to go. You just let them say, but there's somewhere you want to go. Then just say it. When you see that you're being more assertive, could be at your job, could be with your friendships, then you'll know you're healing. She also says if someone seems to forget that you exist, you can still manage to feel good. You'll know that you're healing. So like maybe this like happens to me a lot. And maybe you know what I'm thinking as we're talking about this. Maybe I do this because I'm trying to avoid being rejected. I'm like often the friend, I'm not talking about with you, Nancy, but
Okay.
I'm often the friend in a relationship who reaches out first. You're almost the only friend I have who reaches out to me first. Actually, yeah, you're like almost the only person I have that reaches out to me first.
Hmm.
So thank you for that.
Welcome.
But I feel in a lot, I feel like in most of my other relationships, I'm the one who reaches out and checks on them first. I'm the one who like they're always fine to go out with me. But I'm typically, I would say like 90% of the time it's me driving that. There are
Yeah.
some exceptions, but like it said here, if someone forgets that I exist, then I'll feel okay. And I feel like I don't give people the chance to forget I exist because I keep showing up because I don't want to be rejected. I never thought of that, but I'm thinking it.
Oh.
I'm thinking it now. And it also says you'll also know you're healing rejection if fewer situations arise where you are afraid of panicking, because someone with that wound often panics. I'm a panicker. I panic about a lot of stuff, typically with travel, cars, flying, anything that I actually don't have control of, which is a different wound, but it causes panic. All right, next, your wound of abandonment is being healed when you feel good even when you're alone and you need less attention from other people. And your life may also become less dramatic. So, like, if you're a person who's like always looking for that drama, always looking for attention, when you feel like you don't need so much of that anymore, then you're healing. She says you also feel like you might can take on more projects, even if other people aren't like there supporting you. Like, you'll do it anyway and continue doing things you want to do. Your wound of humiliation will be healed when you take time to think about yourself before other people. This makes me think of like when you're on an airplane and they're like, if you're with a kid, but like if the oxygen mask falls down, put it on you,
Yeah.
because you have to take care of you to take care of other people. So when you can finally start taking care of yourself, and also when you stop creating limits for yourself, and when you're able to ask for things without feeling like you're being a bother, because people with humiliation feel like a burden. I have that. I feel like I'm a burden
Me
sometimes,
too.
and I don't always ask.
I feel like I always feel like a burden.
Yeah. Well, we just went to a restaurant for lunch, and our food was wrong, and you got them to correct yours. And
Mm-hmm.
look, I didn't get them to correct mine, but I was also okay with what I had. Like I
Like I feel
accepted
like
that. But
like when I'm having issues and I have to like talk to you about it, or my cousin, or my sister-in-law, or my other friend, I feel like a burden.
I feel like nobody wants to hear you.
Not that no, I don't feel like you guys don't want to hear me. I feel like I'm burdening you with this.
Well, but that's what friendship's for.
I know, but I
It's
still
for
feel
the
that
highs
way.
and the lows.
I understand that, but
But
I still
I
feel that
understand.
way.
I understand. I understand. Well, I hope one day that you won't. Your wound of betrayal is being healed when you are no longer upset if someone or something like interferes with your plans. And I actually was telling Nancy, I'm clearly not. I mean, Nancy's like, you just started. Of course, you're not. But yesterday we met for dinner and to record an episode, the episode before this one. And at first, her daughter was not going to be with us at all, and then she was going to be with us, but then it changed and she was going to be with us for a little bit. And I was like, okay. And I had gotten her daughter some stickers, because what little kid doesn't love stickers? I like stickers. I'm a grown up, but
I love stickers.
right, stickers. And so I made like her this little sticker book, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go watch her put these stickers in this book for this like 15 minutes we're gonna have together at dinner. And then her dad ended up picking her up early, and I'm like, no. And I was saying, like, the first part where like our plans like changed like 2 or 3 times. Like the first time I was like, okay, cool, it's fine. And then the second, like, no. So I'm still working on it. It's getting there. But back to the wound of betrayal. It also says that you're able to let things go more easily. I have such a hard time with letting things go. But she says when she means of letting things go, it means you have to stop being attached to the results of things and stop wanting everything to go the way that you planned it. And she also mentions that you no longer want to be like the center of attention, and that you can be proud of yourself for accomplishing something, even if others don't acknowledge that you did it. And I feel like that can be really hard, because I think people who want to like have all these like degrees or awards, all these things, like you do it for yourself, hopefully, but also, or maybe for a career advancement, but also you do want people to see that you did that. Like, I worked hard for that, and I want you to
Mm-hmm.
see it. But it's like she's saying, you'll be healed when it's just like, you can feel good about it by yourself. And finally, the wound of injustice. That's being healed when you allow yourself to be less perfect, and when you can make mistakes without feeling angry or criticizing yourself. That you can allow yourself to be like vulnerable and sensitive and cry in front of others without losing control and without fearing the judgment of others. And those are all of the wounds and what it can look like when you're healing. She does say the advantage of healing is that you become self reliant rather than emotionally dependent, because before you heal, like, you might be looking for other people to fill all these voids in your life, right? Give it like that you've had, like, your parents didn't pay attention to you, and so now you're seeking that in a partner, or you're seeking that in friends, or maybe your children. And like at some point you become self-reliant and you realize like that you are your true self and you are enough. And obviously you still have relationships with people and you still need attention from people, but it shouldn't be to the point that it's like crippling your life.
The other book talks about naming that voice in your head that is the one basically telling you to put the mask on. And you tell it, for example, you're having like a thought like nobody wants me, they clearly don't want me here or something. You calm the ego down and you're like, I know that in the past maybe that's true, but today either we don't really have evidence of that or it's not true, and I will handle it. And you can just sit back. And the more you do it, the more that the inner child is going to trust you, and it's going to be like, okay, she got it. I don't have to step in and pretend to be something else.
Right.
She has it. She has control. We trust her. But that could take obviously a long time.
Yeah, I think that's something important. I don't know that I recall in the book her saying like any kind of timeline for healing, and I think that's because obviously everyone's going to take a different amount of time to heal. It depends on what's going on in your life. It depends on what wounds, depends on how deep the wounds are. But I feel like it reminds me of weight loss. Like if you want to lose weight, everybody wants it to happen in a snap. And if it doesn't, you want to give up. So go ahead and accept that you might start trying to heal and it's not going to happen in a snap. I mean, some parts might take longer. But the part that you were just talking about there, like with like naming your ego, it makes me think like nobody really ever called me Mandy, but you know my name's Amanda. So
Mm-hmm.
if I had to name it, maybe I would name it something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it'd be like trying to think of what it could be like. Of like Mandy, if somebody didn't write you back in 5 seconds, it doesn't mean they don't care about you. They might be working.
Yeah.
You're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
Amanda, the adult, like I'm here, and
Yeah.
I realize like Mandy thinks people need to write her back right away, or they don't love her,
I do
or
love
she's
you.
well, I know you do, but you know what I'm saying,
I
like,
do get it.
but Amanda knows.
Girl, I get it.
Amanda knows people have jobs. Amanda knows people have children. Amanda knows people go to the gym. Amanda knows she can't be written 24/7. Do you know what I think when I think of that is that technology has probably made some wounds worse,
Oh, wow,
right?
yeah.
Because when I was a teenager, you would talk to somebody like on Messenger, you had to be connected through your dial up. You weren't on your computer all day. You
Mm-mm.
didn't have a phone attached all day. Like you weren't getting instant gratification of
No.
messages and stuff. So it probably didn't hurt so bad if you had to wait a minute to talk to somebody because you were used to it. And now I think like the younger generations, we're going to have like some issues around that.
Yeah.
But just as in the other episodes, we will have the book noted in the show notes. But we'll also put in the show notes the other book that Nancy mentioned because at the end of this book, if you have it or if you get it, it's very superficial on how to heal. Like I gave you that one exercise about writing stuff down about your day, and Nancy gave you a little more about, you know, naming your ego. But I'm sure the other book goes a lot more in depth of how to heal. This book is mostly about here's what it can look like. So make sure you check out the show notes if you want to dive further into that. And good luck with your healing. And we will catch you next time.
Hey, besties! If you love the chaos, the laughs, and the real talk, don't forget to hit the follow button. Subscribe, share, and tell your friends because bitches be cray, and you know you love it. New episodes drop every other Wednesday, so stay tuned and stay cray. Bye, bitches.